Hi, I'm Arthur, and as someone who enjoys a good joke, I gotta admit, 40k memes are pretty good. Like, a lot of them seem nonsensical, but they do have their place. When you have a media property with so much information spread out, it can cause these inside jokes between friends to form that can easily translate to other people whom have read the same material. In sort of a reductionist kind of way, it makes the material easier to consume for the layman. And most of the time, the jokes are kind of true. Like, from what I've seen of Vulcan, he seems like a really nice guy. And I'm sure he may have hugged at least 3 puppies in his life. Kurz? I don't even think this is a meme. I think this is just true. Favorite fact about Kurz is that Horus himself said, and I quote, "Yeah, Kurz is kind of a mean guy." Horus said that! That man has a heresy named after him, and he thinks Kurz is a bit of a freak. So, keeping all that in mind, when I started my research into the Iron Warriors, I realized that the main thing that people say is that they are bitter and they are cynical. The joke is that they are super stubborn to the point of foolhardiness, which, to a degree, is correct. But upon doing my readings, I feel like there is a lot of misconceptions on how they are interpreted. After going through the Primarch book, several dozen wiki pages, and a bunch of the other scattered about literature pieces, I feel Perturabo is just one of the most compelling Primarchs I have ever read about. So knowing what I know, in as succinct a manner as possible, I wouldn't say that Perturabo is bitter, not inherently so. I think it is a byproduct of him simply being petulant and pragmatic to the point of his own downfall. So to start this off right and proper, the Primarch, Perturabo, the grumpiest man in all of existence, with a good reason to be so, ended up on a shitty planet that had been stripped of most of its resources by the first colonizers, this planet being called Olympia. Yes, it has pretty big Greek and Roman influence to a lot of it, so a lot of those cultural parallels are going to be lost on me, just because I'm a wee bit of a big thicky bobo when it comes to history, especially ancient history. He was essentially forcefully adopted by a local king, and here's one of the things that I notice a lot of people tend to misquote. They say he was adopted by a tyrant, which isn't inherently wrong. His foster father was very cruel, but his foster father isn't necessarily overly tyrannical in the traditional sense of the word. The reason why he's referred to as a tyrant is that on Olympia, the word for king is synonymous with the word tyrant. So you have the ruling classes of individuals under these kings called tyrants. Underneath them, you have tyrant princes and so on and so forth. So, was Purdy's father an asshole? Yes he was, most definitely. He's probably responsible for a lot of massacres that happened later on in his life. He was the ruler of the planet and just saw Perturabo as a resource to be used upon him reaching maturity, which is going to be a bit of a trend for him, so do follow along. Growing up, Perturabo was just bored with everyone and everything around him. Their ideals were too basic for him, as they relished in the glory of things rather than just getting them accomplished. He could immediately look at someone, immediately understand their motives, their character, everything about them, and everything about the way they're speaking. He could look at a machine and immediately understand this is what this machine's purpose is, and immediately know how to improve it. So, as he grew up, he always knew more and knew better and knew how to improve upon everything around him, but everybody just assumed he was wrong. So as he grew up disregarded, he felt a lot of contempt towards everyone. His foster father eventually did grow to love him like a son, but Perturabo's mind never shifted on the topic of affection. He always just assumed his foster father would use him, as it would make no sense otherwise to keep him around and prop him up as he has, at least in his utilitarian mind. The only person he cared remotely about was his sister, Caliphany. they had similar pragmatic and cynical approaches to life that led them to form a bond through adversity. His entire life was him trying to stick to his own plans, trying to find a way to make peace permanent on Olympia, and people around him telling him he's either doing it wrong or this is not the Olympian way and your ideals are misplaced. It caused him to not only reinforce his ideals of pragmatism and stoic defiance, but he essentially fucking weaponized his own stubbornness, so that once he united the entirety of Olympia and the Emperor found him, he became known as one of the coldest and most heartless Primarchs in the entirety of the Primarchs, where other legions gave ranks, gave commendations, gave medals, gave all of these rewards to their troops and their legions for good service. Perturabo never did that. He never rewarded, he never did anything to boost his soldiers up, and it is so comical how horrible he treated his legion that the first second he was introduced to them, he saw that they had failed a recent campaign and made a lottery to kill off, I think it was like something 1/10 of the legion. Don't cite me on that, but it was like a large portion of the legion where every single brother had to draw a ballot, and if you got the one that said you were, chosen, every single battle brother around you had to beat you to death. This was just to show what it means to fail him. He never praised them, he never offered them any kind of reinforcement. You either get the job done, or he would kill you in a petulant rage over his plans not succeeding. I mean, unless your name was Barabbas fucking Dantioch, the Marine with the dick the size of a thunderhammer. Perturabo hated failure, and didn't even enjoy success all too much, if I'm being completely honest. So I can understand why people would think he is bitter, when in fact, he wanted to enjoy his conquest. He wanted to have the same praise as the other Primarchs. He was just a salty asshole about everything. Never once did he consider that changing tactics was an option. He just kept throwing his Marines at people until he won. For someone so known for strategy, didn't really come into consideration that he might run out of guys at some point. So in short order, his fall wasn't due to some kind of magic temptation. It wasn't some demon-corrupted sword or Erebus whispering in his ears. It was literally him throwing a child's tantrum. As I mentioned before, the Marines under him are stoic, stubborn, and resolved to follow his orders or die. Unfortunately, because they kept dying, they overtaxed the original recruitment world of Olympia, and one thing led to another, and oops, all war crimes. He burnt his home city of Locus, and the last straw on the path to damnation slipped away when he broke the neck of his elderly sister, the only person that had ever cared of him. It happened during the end of the siege, and it made him realize that he was too far gone. After that, he broke, snapped like a twig, assuming the Emperor would hold him accountable and punish him horribly for this. Which, yeah, probably. I have a feeling the Emperor would have a few words to say about this. So, with that in mind, he had essentially burnt the bridge behind him that he had crossed. He decided to secede with Horus when the offer was extended to him. That's the Primarch and how they fell. And I know that the Primarch bit kind of went on a bit longer than when I was talking about Fulgrim or Lionel Johnson, but understanding Perturabo is key to understanding his legion, because they're divided into two categories based on their ties to the Primarch. I divide them kind of cutely into these categories of Iron Within and Iron Without. Iron Within types are the troops that have a solidified iron core inside of them. They will not disobey, they will be killed, and they just follow orders like good little soldiers and do whatever they are told to do by Perturabo. And then there's the Iron Without. Those that clad themselves in the armor and steel their resolve, but have that internal humanity still intact. You could probably put together which ones Perturabo kept with him when he fell to chaos. Yeah, it's unfortunate that the majority of his legion ended up being these mindless drones who would listen to him and have absolutely no regard for their own troops or regard for any kind of casualties. Meanwhile, you have like a handful of Marines that believe in iron unbreaking, but also kindness and honor, some kind of chivalry amongst this barbarity that is the Horus Heresy. So with that in mind, let's skip ahead to what the Iron Warriors are like post-heresy. Where are they now? What is the Primarch doing? And are there any other Horus Heresy era or pre-heresy era characters still alive? So in short order, no, there are no characters left to my knowledge. I don't think any of them have survived. I could be wrong. And then you have Perturabo. Perturabo might have ascended to demonhood for Chaos Undivided, meaning he was given gifts by all 4 of the Chaos Gods. But there is a chance that instead of that, he has crafted machinery that would encase his body, sort of like how dreadnoughts function, to keep himself alive due to a soul-destroying wound that he sustained from one of his brothers, Fulgrim. Which, again, congrats, Fulgrim ruined another thing. I've heard good arguments for both sides. I don't really have an opinion on either one. I do think the dreadnought idea is more interesting. That's just my perspective. I don't think that would actually happen, because canonically it says in the lore that he offered up Gene Seed from the Imperial Fists, and as reward, the gods turned him into a demon prince of the Undivided. But Perturabo hated demons, and his entire legion, currently, if they get chaos mutations or any kind of boons, gifts from the chaos gods for raiding or doing great deeds, they remove them, they cut them off. Like, say their hand turns into a giant claw or a sword, they would cut it off and replace it with, like, a cybernetic arm. The remaining individuals of the Iron Warriors are the dregs of that Iron Within caste that I kind of described before, where they are stoic, they are stern, they are stubborn, and they just stay quiet the entire time they're fighting. They are using their bulk in war bands to attack as many people as possible and just do the worst shit ever. These war bands of Iron Warriors are led by these individuals who maintain a title from the pre-heresy days known as Warsmiths. Warsmith is a title that meant more pre-heresy than it does now, because Warsmith back then was basically someone who led a grand company, where now it's just the generic term they use for someone who's considered a Chaos Lord, which is like the equivalent of a Space Marine captain. So it's lost a lot of the shine, essentially. In comparison to the other Chaos Legions, they're kind of better off. They have very pure gene seed. They are respected for their attrition warfare. They are still miserable assholes all the time, though. So do keep that in mind. They might be really good at what they're doing, but they're definitely not enjoying it. And they're just employed in many different crusades and campaigns just because of their ability to do siege warfare so perfectly. Currently in the lore, I know that Perturabo was helping with Abaddon's 13th Black Crusade alongside a few of his warbands, strengthening Abaddon's core battalions with Havocs and heavy weapon specialists, while also giving siege weaponry. The reason why they reject Chaos boons is unknown to me. I don't think I ever found a reason why. I think it's more just they prefer the surety of steel, the sanctity and the sternness of hard material rather than meat. So that's kind of why I think Perturabo would reject demonhood and choose to be just a giant fuck you dreadnought. So that's something interesting to think about, I suppose. Oh, I'd be remiss to not mention the super mega fuck you blood vendetta eternal war between the Iron Warriors and the Imperial Fists. But it's not as interesting as you'd think. It's quite literally Perturabo trying his best to get into a dick measuring contest with the Primarch of the Imperial Fists, to which Rogel Dorn, the Primarch of the Imperial Fists, promptly replies with, "Ew, fuck off," and Peter Turbo molds and runs in the corner. This all kind of culminated in the most interesting battle in their lore, or rather the biggest one, which is the Battle of the Iron Cage. It's a very interesting war that shows the differences in siege tactics. The Iron Warriors are siege masters, where the Imperial Fists are the best at building the walls. The Warriors are the best at breaking them down, willing to give up everything and anything to erase the lives of their enemies. It's quite literally a matter of statistics to them. Everything is a resource, even people, and the more you look into it, the more fucked up their tactics get. I'm not going to talk about the Homunculuba. Hanso is terrifying. I'll probably talk about it at some point. I just want to do a broad generalist view of the Iron Warriors. This video is probably going to be longer, because I just had a lot more to say about them than usual. I tried to go about it in a different way than other lore channels, and instead of focusing on the what, I tried to explain the why. Why do they do what they do? It's all based on this utilitarian, nihilistic toxicity that has kind of seeped its way into the Legion from Perturabo's childhood being just fucked up by his dad. And because of that, this lacking of empathy, this lack of understanding that human life and Astartes' life has meaning and has importance, it inevitably led to the Legion's eternal damnation. And there is no way they are ever coming back. Unlike with the Emperor's Children, where there's the clone Fulgrim, Perturabo was fucked from the start. He was damned by his childhood the second he landed on Olympia to be a paranoid, sociopathic, abusive narcissist. And I find that makes him one of the most compelling characters in the entirety of the setting. By virtue of, I can see the steps that brought him to be where he's at. He didn't fall to chaos because, oh, some magic weapon made him do it. No, he did it because life fucked him. Fucked him from minute one, and it didn't stop fucking him. He just wanted recognition for his work, and he would never get it. And to a point, it is his fault, but you can only blame him for so much. But that's kind of how the Iron Warriors are. They're unchanging. Their first impression of something is the impression that they will keep until they are either killed or it's killed. It's why they throw so many bodies at everything, because that way always works, no matter what. If you throw enough Astartes at something, it's gonna die. Even if you have to kill thousands of your own men to get past that wall, it's gonna work. And that's why they're one of the more successful legions. Because they just don't care. They don't care about that resource cost of human life. And I think that makes them one of the scariest. God, this is fucking sad. Put the funny, smiling Peter Turbo face on the screen again. Yeah. That's the shit. I feel better now. Oh, fuck. I forgot to mention the HUD, which is kind of important. Okay, goodbye. Thank you again for watching. It was really fun to do all this research. Maybe I just thrive under pressure, but having to read like 3 books and read like a dozen wikis in 1 week, it just feels kind of fun. It's like it's a good challenge for me. But reading over all of the lore for the Iron Warriors and Perturabo, I definitely missed some stuff, so I feel like people are going to correct me on that, but I'd like to know more, because I might make a sequel to it at some point. I just want to get as much information out there as possible so that people can consume it easier. As per the usual, make sure to like and comment and subscribe to feed the machine spirits of the algorithm. And yeah, thanks for watching. I appreciate it very much.